I teach the youngest cadets at Tessin hold the discipline of stillweave, and every year on the same morning, I let them ask me one question about the crossing before I never answer another for the rest of the term. They always ask the same thing. They want to know what human space looked like. I tell them it looked like nothing, because that was the whole point of stillweave, and that is true, and it is also the smallest part of the truth, and for 11 years it was the only part I had. I was one of 3 sent across the Aldrin Verge. 3 of us went, 2 of us came home, and quarantine cleared both of us within the hour, every year since on schedule, without exception, until this winter. I am telling you this now because the seal has been read, and because I am told the record will close whether or not I add my own account to it, and I would rather it carry mine. Stillweave is not armor, and it is not a cloak. It is a discipline we borrow from a parasite native to our second moon, a thing that survives inside larger organisms by making its own signature indistinguishable from the noise the host already produces. We train for 4 years to breathe like static, to let our heat and our pulse and the chatter of our suits dissolve into whatever background a place already had. Doran Vethic trained us. He had crossed once himself, decades before, on an older mission nobody would describe to us in full, and the only thing he ever said about it directly was the thing he said the morning before we went. He said the line does not need to touch you to mark you. I thought he meant it as a warning about fear. I was 26 and I thought I understood every shape fear could take. I did not ask him what else it might mean. I have had 11 years to regret that, and I still do not know if asking would have changed anything. We crossed at the narrowest stretch of the verge, where the buffer thins to 11 light minutes and the old survey charts show nothing but a string of dead relay buoys nobody has serviced in a century. Alan Soares led. Tobiah Kren ran our signal discipline, and at 22 he was better at stillweave than either of us, quieter than the silence around him, the kind of quiet that made our instructors nervous because they could not measure how he did it. I held the data. That was my whole function. I was the one who would carry whatever we found back out, if anyone made it back out at all. What we found was not what 11 generations of stories had prepared us for. We expected fire or fleets, or the wreckage the old reports describe and never explain. We found stillness. We found structures on 3 worlds that had no apparent purpose we could name, arranged with a precision that did not read as decoration and did not read as defense either, just as intention, patient and unbothered by our presence or our absence. We watched from low orbit on the 3rd world for 9 days, recording, saying almost nothing aloud, because stillweave fails the moment you forget to need it failing. On the 9th day, the relay we used to keep contact with the buoy chain began drawing power we had not budgeted for, a slow bleed that should have shown up on every instrument we had and somehow did not, until it had already cost us 4 hours of fuel margin we could not recover. Alan made the calculation in under a minute. 2 of us could make the return window. 3 could not. He did not ask Tobiah to volunteer, and Tobiah did not ask to be spared. He simply stayed at the relay to keep our channel alive long enough for us to clear the threshold, the way you hold a door a half-second longer than you need to, and then the door closed, and there was nothing on any sensor we carried to say what closing it had cost him. No flash, no debris, no final transmission, just a console reading that he had stopped drawing power and a silence shaped exactly like him. We crossed back out with nothing chasing us. That detail mattered more than anyone back home understood. No one followed. Nothing pursued. We simply left, the way you leave a room you were never invited into, and the room did not seem to notice or care that we had been there at all. I have told cadets for a decade that this was the worst part, the absence of any reaction, because at least a reaction would have meant we had been seen. Quarantine held us for 6 weeks that first year, the longest hold in the program's history. They scanned us with everything the compact had, ran the deep tissue series twice, traded notes with 3 allied polities who had instruments we did not. They found nothing. No contaminant, no device, no signature that didn't belong to us. Alan never spoke of the relay again after his statement to the board, not once. not even to me. And within 4 years he had transferred to a survey post on the far rim where the verge was only a line on a chart he never had to look at directly. I stayed. I told myself it was because the program needed an instructor who had actually crossed, and that was true. But it was also easier to stand in front of cadets and recite the discipline than to sit alone with what the discipline had cost. Every year after the first, the same instruments, the same clean result, until the clean result itself became part of the legend I taught. That still we've had worked so completely it had carried us home clean, that the line really could be crossed and survived if you were patient enough and quiet enough and willing to leave someone behind at the threshold. I believed every word of it when I said it. That is the part I keep returning to. I was not lying to them. I simply did not yet know what I was. This winter, Tess and Hold installed an isotopic resonance array 3 generations, beyond anything we had used on me before, built for an unrelated marrow study, nothing to do with the verge at all. The technician ran it on volunteers from the senior staff as a calibration exercise, the kind of task junior researchers hand to people who are bored enough to sit still for 40 minutes. I was a senior staff volunteer. I remember the first pass returned an artifact the technician assumed was instrument noise, a faint resonance shadow at a depth no prior scan had ever reached, and I remember the small, almost embarrassed apology in her voice when she asked if she could run it again. She ran it 4 more times. The shadow held its shape every time, fixed and deliberate, the way noise never is. The array had found a structure seated in my marrow that every prior instrument, across 11 years and dozens of scans, had read as ordinary tissue, because it had been built, with extraordinary patience, to read exactly like ordinary tissue. It was not a weapon. The biologists were clear about that within the first day, and I believed them, because if it had wanted to be a weapon, it had 11 years and every opportunity to be one. What it was, when they finally extracted enough of the structure to read it without destroying it, was a record. A precise, dated accounting, encoded the way our own stillweave organism encodes itself into a host's noise, of 9 days of orbital observation over the third world. Times. Positions. The exact moments we believed ourselves unseen. It did not describe anything we did. It only confirmed, in a hand none of us had written, that all of it had been watched, logged, and filed away inside the one vessel guaranteed to carry it home, without ever knowing it was carrying anything at all. I was the data. I had always thought I was the one who held it. I have not corrected that cadet's question yet, the one about what human space looked like, and I do not think I will. The council sealed the file 2 days after the reading, and the senior advocate asked me, gently, whether I wanted to add a personal statement before the seal closed for good. I told her I would think about it. I have thought about it for 11 days now, which is 1 more day than we spent watching that world without once believing we were the ones being recorded. There is a version of this where I tell the cadets the truth next year, the whole shape of it, the relay, Tobiah, the silence shaped like him, the structure that waited a decade to be read. I do not think I will tell them that either. Some debts are not collected the way you expect them to be. Some are simply carried, quietly, inside the very thing that was meant to prove you had gotten away clean, until something finally asks the right question of the wrong tissue, and the answer turns out to have been keeping its own ledger the entire time.